Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our second in a series of six series. We did one last month on human resource management. We're doing project management today, and we've got four more great ones lined up after the first of the year. I'm Mary Jacobs. I'm the Associate Dean and of the School of Business and Technology, as well as the MBA Program Director here at St. Mary's, and it's just a pleasure to have you join us for the next 30 minutes or so. This is a speaker series that we developed in the fall. We're really excited to have our presenter here, Bill Johnson, join us and talk about project management and careers in project management and the like. So we're going to kind of do two parts today. One of them is bridging the gap between leaders and project managers, excuse me. And then also the second part of it will be about information about careers in project management, and then a brief overview about the St. Mary's master's program as well as certificate program. And what Bill and I have designed are some questions to go back and forth. So it's really an interview format today, and we will allow plenty of time at the end of our webinar to open up for questions. So with that, Bill, I'm going to turn it over to you and have you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Mary. It's a pleasure being here today to share some wisdom in the project management field. As you probably all know, my name is Bill Johnson, and I've been the program director for the graduate programs in project management here at St. Mary's. Those include the master's degree in project management as well as the graduate certificate. And then we are launching a new program, the MS in IT project management in 2025 that I'll be overseeing. Before that time, I spent about 7 years teaching in the program. And before that, I was a student many, many years ago, which we will not talk about. I also, prior to that, had been a project and program manager, primarily in the government as well as for nonprofits, including the Americans Road Trust. I currently also teach for the U.S. Navy for their Pacific and Atlantic fleets. I teach them project management and I also serve on the Project Management Institute Global Accreditation Center's accrediting committee, which goes and does site visits of programs wishing to have accreditation. So I'm a little on the busy side, but that's who I am, Mary.
All right, excellent. And you know what, Bill, I always appreciate your passion for project management, your program, and how you really want more people to learn more about project management. We've been lucky enough to work with some colleagues too that have kind of innate project management skills, and you've helped some of our people along the way too to become better project managers. So just for everybody's sake, we've put together some questions just in preparation for today, kind of what's on the mind of business leaders, and then also kind of from a student perspective about how you can excel in the field of project management. So Bill, to start us off, when discussing the gap between leaders and project managers, what are you referring to, and why is it so important?
Well, Mary, it really is about project failure. These are the gaps that occur between leadership and project managers and their teams, and the necessary information or resources is not really available to the project team for them to be successful. And so there's a number of areas that really these gaps fall into from looking at the systematic areas of an organization that may have barriers, being a hierarchy structure, to the communication flow. How does that impact that effectiveness of working with each other? Also, clarity of vision, understanding what is the objective of the project, as well as setting expectations and who is accountable for what. Sometimes that's not very clear. How often do you communicate with your leaders, and what mediums are you going to use? What are some of the cultural factors that go into that may create those barriers or gaps that occur? A good example there is the reluctance of perhaps upper management giving feedback to project managers and their teams. Feedback is always really helpful, I always find. And then, of course, the lack of planning. Now, you're probably going, well, do these things really impact projects? Well, there is a lot of data out there about how many projects actually fail. And since these gaps are they're really the essence of why projects fail, it's important to understand that approximately 70% of all projects fail, according to the Project Management Institute. That is also backed up by a couple of polls done by Harris in 2024. In one poll, they determined that 1.2 trillion, that's trillion dollars, is being lost each year by organizations in the United States due to these gaps. So it's a huge cost to businesses. Also, teams and that are working on projects on the average lose 7.47 days per week, or almost one full day of work, because these gaps can occur. And lastly, Forbes magazine has identified miscommunication and the lack of resources as one of the primary sources that projects fail. So there's a number of reasons why these gaps exist, and there is definitely some numbers behind those to reinforce that as well, Mary.
Yeah, really compelling data. When you bring up the statistics, right, of almost a day's worth of work, like 1 out of 5 days, the people actually lose it, right, to not being as productive. And then, Bill, you talked about sometimes the reluctance of leaders to communicate with employees. And I would also venture that it's also the opposite too, which is employees and project managers or team members on a project are reluctant to maybe deliver bad news back to their leadership team, right? And so sometimes that misstep and that gap of communication, it really can go both ways. And I think that technical expertise that project managers and project team members, coordinators, whatever level you're at, is so important, because you have a level of expertise and technical expertise. It really makes a difference in terms of what you know, your insights, what you're watching for, the stop gaps and the like. I know we're going to spend a little more time on more information. So how do we address this gap then to ensure that it doesn't occur, or at minimum start to kind of lessen the communication gap? Because you provided some really compelling information.
Well, it really comes down to the project manager knowing what is causing these gaps and how to address them. Understanding what are the triggers that causes these gaps to occur. Are they not receiving proper data? Why are they not receiving it? Really, it comes down to that why. And project managers need to have the skills and talents in order to identify those triggers and to address those issues from the root causes to ensure that they do not reoccur throughout the project, Mary. So it really comes down to the project manager being the one to help to do that as well.
So do you want to talk a little bit further about the talent triangle that you've been schooling me onto and how important that is?
Well, really, yeah, um, the talent triangle is really the foundation that the Project Management Institute, which is our primary professional association for project managers with close to, I want to say, 5 million members worldwide, have put together what is known as the talent triangle. And the talent triangle has three different sides, of course: the technical expertise, the business awareness, and the leadership. Now, when you think about project managers, you often think of somebody, as Mary has indicated, that is task oriented or a linear thinker. They're very organized, probably task oriented, and often use checklists. I know I use a lot of them. But it really is more than those technical capabilities. You need to have an awareness of the business awareness, as well as leadership skills. So let's take a quicker look at each one of these things.
Yeah.
Let's start out with the technical knowledge. We've already talked a little bit about that. And the technical knowledge is really those tools and best practices that we put into place in order to manage our projects. It's everything from developing a scope statement to how to build a schedule to how to create the budget for it, and then knowing how to watch the performance to ensure that you're meeting your objectives from a schedule and a budget point of view. It also looks at how do you identify risks and assess those risks. How do you identify the quality that you need to achieve? All of these various areas are really technical. Now, your technical knowledge that you will definitely pick up in the master's program and understand. But it's those technical expertise that a lot of us think about when they come down to project managers. Now, the other two areas are probably equally important, if maybe not more important, when it comes to understanding what the responsibilities of a project manager are. Business awareness is the second area, or the second side of the talent triangle. And really, this is looking at value, the value that a project is bringing to an organization. We might be creating a new accounting software package. But why are we doing that? That why is the important question. We might be trying to reduce the amount of time that accounts receivable are sitting in limbo and we have not received payment for them yet. The new system might address that. We might look at how do we expand our market area. These are the whys of why we are doing our projects. And a project team and a project manager needs to understand that why and how these projects align with the organization's strategic objectives, its mission, its vision, all of those kind of things that really answer that why question. And then there is the third side of the triangle, which is the leadership side. And that is learning, or that really pertains to the style that a project manager may use to lead their team and move their projects forward. You know, they may be using servant leadership. They may be using a democratic form of leadership or even an authoritarian style of leadership. It also includes looking at developing your team and creating a cohesive team. We've all probably heard about the forming, storming, norming, and performing and adjourning of a project team, but learning what are what needs to be done in each of those areas to move your team up from, say, forming to the storming area. What do you need to do as a project manager? And then what skills do they need to develop? Oftentimes your team members are coming in, don't necessarily have all the necessary skills. So you as the project manager need to work with them and determine where they are on that, on this skills level to bring them up to speed. So those are the three areas of the talent triangle, and they really focus on not just that technical capability, but on those communications, your leadership, your understanding of business and why you're doing certain things. And if you think back on that list of potential gaps, they really do address all of those various gaps and looking at them. I hope that helps a little bit, Mary.
Yeah, it's good information. I only recently learned about the talent triangle. So the more you and I talk about it, the more I feel like I get educated about it. So a couple of points that really stood out to me, Bill, is the value of budget and managing a budget. I also think the hierarchy in an organization can prevent someone from feeling comfortable. Let's say you're working with the senior vice president of your own organization. You're the project leader, and maybe you're off track, off budget, or you're not going to meet the deadline. That's hard to have a conversation, difficult conversation with a leader. So when you talk about the ability to persuade and communicate, you just reiterate the importance of the skill set and developing the skill set. And I'm going to guess that a lot of people that take on project management, maybe not even officially in their scope of their job responsibility, but just are really good, innately organized, linear type thinkers. The checklist that you mentioned, right? That people like the checklist. That developing that confidence and the communication of delivering sometimes not always the best information or news to a senior leader is really, really important. So, Bill, let's segue a little bit more now to St. Mary's, the St. Mary's program. I know you're going to share some information as well about careers, job types, salary ranges, if you will, in different industries or even in different job types. So here's my next question. How do the graduate programs and project management help you develop these areas outlined in the talent triangle?
Well, there's a number of ways we do that. Number one, we really focus on the best practices, teaching our students the best practices. And how do we do that? Our program is kind of unique. We are only one of about 25, 30 universities that are accredited by the Project Management Institute Global Accreditation Center here in the United States. This accreditation every 5 years, in fact, next year we'll be going through it again, or the next couple of years. They come in, they review our curriculum, and make sure that we are teaching the best practices in project management. We went through this about 3-4 years ago. And as I said, I serve on the accreditation committee where I go out and review. And in fact, I recently reviewed a university. It's always quite interesting to be on both sides of the table of that. So that accreditation is very important. It says to the student that this is a legitimate program that provides you with a good educational experience. The program also really prepares students to sit for those certification exams. The gold standard of those is the PMP, Project Management Professional Exam. But I've had students take the Scrum Master certification through the Scrum Alliance, as well as the product owner, as well as the myriad of other ones that exist within the Project Management Institute. Our courses here within really prepare you to sit for those exams, going through and making sure that all of them you have the necessary information to go in and successfully pass those exams. And then our curriculum really focuses on those 3 areas. We have a number of courses that look at the technical expertise from our 601 predictive project management, our waterfall, as well as 620, our agile project management, as well as 613 quality and 614 risk management. We also have ones that look at strategic awareness, including PRM 616, project value, and project performance and value. Sorry, I had the words mixed up there a little bit. And also PRM 625, which is strategic project and program management. And then our leadership courses focus on that area. And those include PRM 611, as well as PRM 612, project leadership, stakeholder, and team management. So the program has really been brought together to provide the students with the knowledge base to be able to to identify the triggers that these potential gaps have, and as well as how to go about addressing them and ensuring that they are lessened. A couple of things I'd like to talk about here is um, one of the biggest compliments I get when I'm sitting in the classroom as an instructor is when a student comes back and says to me, well, last week we talked about this and I was able to use that this week in at work. That is by far the biggest compliment that I can receive by all means. And that happens quite often in my classes. In fact, at least once each class. And in fact, I recently had a capstone student write his capstone project or capstone paper on developing a project management office at the American Red Cross here. And he used all of the information to build that office out and brought in all of the templates as well as the information that he learned in his in the program to brought all of that and was able to create one of the best project capstone papers I've ever read. So we do provide the students with the ability to learn about how to develop those technical skills as well as that business awareness and develop their own leadership style as well. So that those are things that really bring the program forward, Mary.
Yeah, and I think, Bill, when you named, the different courses and that, like just listening to the course titles, right, just gives some insights to it about the quality of the master's degree or the certificate. And I often think sometimes a barrier for people is language differences, right? So I have felt in your presence and in others that have backgrounds in project management that the language, you get each other, right? We had a recent meeting with somebody from Mayo Clinic, and the two of you as project leaders, project manager leaders, just understand each other, right? And I just feel like that nuance really comes out in a master's degree program or certificate because it's something that you learn. And then the application, which is really rewarding for the student to apply it into their role and for their organization. And I think for sure you as well, Bill, right, as the instructor and your other faculty who are very impressive to be able to see the results, if you will, of the training and the curriculum in the master's program. So I've got a couple questions left, and then I just wanted to make sure we had some time if we have questions from our participants. Can you talk a bit about the different kinds of jobs that are available? And even if there's a salary range that you could, also speak to.
Yeah, there are a number of positions that exist within project management, and project management is in every industry. It They are project managers in, we often think about construction and IT having project managers, but even you mentioned Mayo. Mayo has as many project managers as they do nurses on staff. It's hard to believe, but they do. And so the 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 industry is really growing and expanding as even worldwide. Of course, the largest growth is now in India and Southeast Asia. So, but getting back to the various positions that students could possibly look at. Now, this may vary from industry to industry a little bit. The titles may not be exactly what I have here, but they'll be close. Really, the entry level is the project coordinator. And the project coordinator is one that really helps the project manager out, making sure that everything has been documented, collecting all the data, doing everything that is necessary to identify those potential gaps as we talked about. Now they'll really start around in the $50,000 to $60,000 neighborhood of salary. Then we move to a junior project manager. That's someone who's taking on a little bit more role, leadership role, making decisions, and but really report to a project manager. And the junior project manager in the 60 to $80,000 range. The project manager position really has a large salary range from 80,000 up to approximately 125,000. It really depends on what industry you're in. The 80 to 100,000 is more in your manufacturing, government, nonprofit areas, whereas in the 100,000 on up, it's in your IT industries, really tend to pay at that level. So be cognitive that there is a little bit of difference when it comes to the project manager. Then there are what is known as program managers. Now, program managers oversee a number of related projects that are occurring. And they have usually a much larger budget, et cetera. And they're in the 150 to $250,000 range. I have a friend that works for Lockheed Martin, and I know he's making it in close to 250 grand easily. And then the PRI, and then there is what is known as the POM manager, project management office manager. Now, the PMO really collects all the best practices as well as the templates, et cetera, as I had said. And again, they're in about the $150,000, $175,000 range. So there's a great deal of variance and a lot of places to enter the market and utilize your past experience to move up in the industry, Mary.
That is really encouraging. It feels like there's such demand and a variety of career levels, right? So someone that's new into project management, just the fact that they've got so many options in so many different industries, sounds like almost every company, is going to have some capacity in a project management role, whether it's a coordinator, if you're a smaller organization, all the way up to the Targets and 3Ms and the likely, and the other big corporations that rely, Mayo Clinic, on staffing of staff, if you will, of qualified project managers. So that's got to be encouraged for anyone in the field to think that they can make a very good salary and probably continue to advance in their responsibility as well. So I appreciate that. That's really good insight. We just experienced a year ago the accreditation process, and we can all speak to the work that was involved. And one of our colleagues who really led the project team with two other people who was very instrumental in moving us along to make sure that we were able to meet the deadlines, the coordination, everything that was set up for our success. And we very successfully, passed our IACB accreditation. And it's really thanks in so much to the leadership of one of our colleagues who worked really hard to get us all organized, kind of get behind the scenes. And she was growing in her skill set too as a leader, having to communicate sometimes deadlines or expectations, if you will, to make sure we were moving ahead. Mm-hmm. Okay, last question I have for you, Bill, and then we're going to open it up. So how do students learn then? You've given us a lot of really good insights, a lot of good information. How can students lessen the gap from your perspective between leaders and project managers?
Now let's bring this full circle.
Okay.
Really, it's the learning about and understanding the best practices in project management. The program really instills in you what those are. What are the processes? What are the procedures? How do you develop your leadership skills? How do you understand the awareness? And understanding what are the questions, how do you ask those questions, and understanding the terminology, as you said. So really understanding and being able to utilize those best practices is probably the best way of doing that. Understanding how to create a schedule. Also understanding how you again, knowing how to ask that why question. Why are we doing this? What is the value of this to the organization? And then able to listen and communicate. We really focus on that. I know in all of our courses, students have to give at least one and usually three presentations. So they learn how to communicate, they learn how to share information and provide guidance to that. We use peer review in our discussions a great deal to provide feedback. And one of my favorite things is please provide them with a couple of things that they could improve upon, and do it nicely, as I say. So, yeah. So really learning the best practices and then understanding these things as well, Mary.
That's great, Bill. Thank you. So we've got a couple of slides as we finish up your kind of formal part of the presentations that we just want to think we've got an overview of the different, and I know you outlined many of these classes. And if you're interested, this is just a quick snapshot of the courses and the key curriculum in the project management program, both the certificate as well as the master's degree.
And one of the things you may want to mention is if you come in and you want to work on the graduate certificate, those courses can then be utilized to finish up your master's degree if you so choose once you have completed the graduate certificate. We have embedded those courses into both the MS and MS and project management as well as the MS and IT project management course, which we'll see in the next slide.
Okay, you want to speak to this briefly then?
Well, this is a new program, the MS and IT project management. This is a STEM designated program. And so it really combines three courses from three of our programs. Our project management program, as well as our cybersecurity program and our business intelligence and analytics program, and brings them all under one umbrella, providing you with the best practices tools of project management on how to effectively manage IT projects and ensuring you have a solid understanding of the IT industry through our foundations of cybersecurity and business analytics as well, so that you kind of get a well-rounded knowledge of how to manage IT projects.
Exciting, right? Just very exciting opportunity for a new master's and to embed, taking three core key technology programs into one MS and IT project management. So I think the next slide has Bill's contact information and my contact information. If any of you that have joined us today would like to reach out and have another conversation around our program or even career questions, Bill's the leader and the expert in project management, but I'm also always happy to have a conversation with people about different programs at St. Mary's and why St. Mary's, and even your career goals and aspirations, how we can help you to achieve your professional and your personal goals. And then the last thing that we have, and I believe Madeline, thank you. This is our upcoming series, so we're not going to be doing a program in December, but we'll start up again in January. So it's talking about nonprofit sector, and then in February, learning more about AI. These are all of our St. Mary's esteemed and experienced faculty. In March, we're going to do one on the science of well-being offered by Dr. Kotz. And then I will wrap up our 6-part series in April talking about exploring entrepreneurship. And it's available for you. We've got information out there as well. But if you are interested in learning more, please let us know. We're happy to share this with you. And then I believe the last part, and then we'll open it up to questions. Madeline, I think we've got a slide on the 14 questions, or are we just going to put that in the chat? I think it's going in the chat. Okay, well, with that, let us open up. Who has questions or comments or any kind of feedback for us? And you're welcome to put something in the chat, or you're welcome also to ask your question directly. Oh, thank you, Madeline. How about one last chance to ask a question or make a comment or feedback? Dilshan, what kind of personalities, Bill, are best suited for IT project management from your perspective?
Somebody that and so IT project management really focuses on what is known as the agile approach. Now, the agile approach tends to be not as structured as the traditional waterfall approach, and it really is what is known, the teams tend to be more self-directed in terms of what is going to be worked on and what is not going to be worked on. So when you are a scrum master or a product owner within an agile environment, you really need to be able to communicate effectively with your team because a lot of things are not set in stone in that kind of an environment. And so you really need the ability to communicate effectively with your teams, with your team members, um, as well as the upper echelon, the leaders. You also need to understand how the agile approach really works. How do you use user stories? This is that technical knowledge. How do you use user stories to build the product backlog? How do you, what is the velocity that you are building things at? The speed that you are building certain areas of the IT, your IT project at. So understanding that technical. So the communications, the leadership, leading that team, and even in IT project managers, and maybe even more, because it is not as structured, is really having a solid understanding of why. What is that strategic objective? But of the three, they're all very equally important. But it needs to be somebody that can communicate and work with teams simply because it is not as a structured environment as a um, predictive or waterfall approach project. I hope that answers your question, Dilshan.
Good question. Okay, any other further questions or feedback or comments? Well, with that, I want to thank everybody again for joining us. I thank you, Bill, for your preparation and your presentation. It's outstanding information. And I wish you, everyone here who's on the call with us, our participants, that you have a great holiday season. And we hope to see you in January with our next speaker series. So take care, everyone. Have a nice afternoon.